Camille Adams, thank you so much for coming to Unstuck today. I've been waiting for this conversation. I'm glad to have you. And I know once people hear your story, they're going to be all into the work you're doing and who you are. Welcome to Unstuck.
Thank you so much for having me, Tim. I just am excited and for an opportunity to share what I'm passionate about, what I do in my life's mission, and kind of how everything culminated to this. So thanks for having me.
You're so welcome, and I'm glad to have you. Nutrition's a big topic. It's a huge subject in terms of quality of life, cost, economies, people's lives, birth rate. I mean, you name the health and people related topic, food's got something to do with it somewhere and how nutrition works. And you sit at the center of nutrition and community. Before we unpack all of that, where did that passion come from? Take me back to, where you grew up. Where did that come to you to care about nutrition and community at the same time?
Yeah. Thank you for asking that. And it's so funny that you say that because it really is an and both. And I've never seen one without another. And when we think
Mm,
about nutrition and food and different diets people eat, there is no nutrition without community because food is so social. So I appreciate that
yeah.
you put them together because that's just how I see it. So I'm from Lansing, Michigan. I currently right now work in Benton Harbor, Michigan, but I'm from Lansing. I've lived all over Michigan, and it's just such an interesting story because I never thought that I would be here, but here I
Mm,
am. So I knew I loved cooking from a young age, a very young age, because my great grandmother always cooked around me. My mom cooked. It wasn't necessarily healthy foods, but that passion for
yes,
cooking and the way that I
sure.
know that food and good food brings people together was instilled in me in a very young age. And so I grew up with a single parent. It was mostly just me and my mom in Lansing, and she was doing the best she could with what she had. She liked to cook, but she probably didn't cook the most healthy foods, or she had to work a lot, and so I had a lot of processed and packaged food. Growing up, I went to public school, went to Waverly schools, and so they didn't have the best food, and so I knew I always enjoyed eating, and who doesn't, right? But, there was no thought in my brain about what I was eating, as most people do. It's just kind of unconscious, and I was just eating the things that were surrounded and given to me in my environment. And I was about, 16 years old, really started having some health problems, and I tell people that's why it's health at every size, because if you would look at me,
Oh,
you would never assume that I was, like, unhealthy. I've always been in a regular weight category, a healthy BMI category. But I was really suffering with chronic pain and inflammation, and it wasn't right for someone being so young. And so I went to
mm,
doctor after doctor, and finally a GI doctor, gastrointestinal doctor, said to me, "Do you think what you're eating could be affecting the way that you feel?"
hmm,
And it was like an aha moment for me. I can
wow,
remember it right now, sitting in that office to this day. And I had never thought about it like that before. Never.
wow.
Never once in
Yeah,
my life had I thought
sure.
about what I was eating could be affecting how I feel. I just ate.
Mm,
And that's most people in the world. You
sure.
just,
Yeah,
you need to eat to survive, and you eat what you're given.
that's right.
And there are cultural and community norms that shape those things. And so after that, I became like a professional Googler, and
Right.
which was helpful and not helpful at the same time. There's a lot of
Sure.
information out there, a lot of conflicting information, a lot of misinformation.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and,
We've tried every kind of diet in the world, and they all seem to contradict each other. One tells you to
exactly,
not eat
exactly.
what the other one tells you to eat all the time.
And it's so funny, I tell people any diet, where it sounds too good to be true, it is. Diet culture is a
Mm,
billion-dollar industry in here. People make so much money off of selling you a dream that's not real and sustainable.
sure. Right.
More to that later. But I
Yeah.
just started like including like fruits and more vegetables, just more whole foods in my diet. And I immediately felt better, like 2 weeks.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so I had the aha moment. I went through the change myself. I started really thinking about why did I eat those foods? Why did I want processed foods? Why didn't I know they were bad? Why did I want pop and soda? Just a lot of reflecting. And it was a beautiful time in my life because I was growing into a young adult. Fast forward,
Yeah.
I went to Michigan State, and again, because of the circumstances I grew up with, I had a traumatic background. I had
Mm.
a parent who dealt with a lot of mental illness and just struggled, and so I knew I always wanted to be in a field where I helped people and was in the
Yeah.
community because the community helped me. The after
Wow.
school
Yeah.
teachers, the counselors at the Y, right? The I can still remember I was in 4th grade and the lunch lady would always go on a walk with me during lunch and give me advice. So many
That's great.
people gave me so much love and positive energy that I was like, I need to do this. So I thought maybe I want to be a doctor, maybe I want to be a nurse. And then I took an intro to nutrition class. Mind you, I'm still on this whole like life journey of trying new foods and learning about my diet. And
Sure.
I was
Yeah.
like, this is really cool. And I was like, "Wow," and I talked to the professor afterwards, and they were like, "Yeah." She was like, "I'm a dietitian, and you can do that for a job. You
Mm.
should go talk to the advisor at Michigan State." And I was like, "What?" And I
Isn't that
remember her,
something?
I know. I remember her, she's retired now. Her name is Linda Summers, and she was like, "Yep, you can do this for a job. All the things that you have been through to this point will even help you be a better dietitian." I said, "I can help people." And at this point, I felt what nutrition was doing for me,
Right.
and when none of the medications worked and I'm seeing my family members have chronic illnesses, especially with me being biracial, being a minority, knowing, oh my God, like it's so different. We eat so different on the black side of my family versus the white side. And how are we going to put all these
Mm.
things together? And I realized at that moment
Uh-huh.
that that was what I was supposed to do.
Wow.
It
And isn't
really helped.
I mean, how important is exposure though? I mean, not just to your career, but to this topic of nutrition, right? Like you wouldn't be here unless one person walked outside of their comfort zone or out of their own business and said, "Hey, you could do this too. Come on with me. I'll show you." And I think nutrition's gotta happen in the same way, right? I mean, it's person to person, family to family, friend to friend. Like how important is access to that information and access to the possibilities, versus this whole commercial thing about nutrition and wellness that what do you call it, a multi-billion-dollar industry?
Hmm.
What's the
I
difference
mean,
between that community exposure versus this exposure to all the get slim quick stuff?
First of all, exposure and education is everything. It's such a privilege to be educated. It was such a privilege
Mm,
that I could go and be educated. I'm the first person on my mom's side to go have a formal education. So it's extremely
yeah,
important to me and it's a blessing.
yeah.
But again, why is it different in community? Because the community is safe, the community
Mm,
is well known, the community is hopefully people. Not showing you something impossible, people calling you in and meeting you where you're at. And that's
mm,
what most people need. They don't want to
yeah,
be PhDs in nutrition. They want to know very simply, I mean, what do I eat? That's the biggest question I get taught. And they want foods to reflect foods that they're used to seeing and
yeah,
cultural norms. And being out in the
yeah,
community is the best way to reach people. And like I said earlier, mentors and people taking their chance on me, all of these things culminated into me becoming a dietitian. And I remember when I changed my major, I remember I was sitting with my grandma and she said, "What are you going to do with that?" And I said, "You know
yeah.
what? I don't know, but everybody eats. So I think that I'll
That's
be
right.
fine." And I'm a
That's a
faithful,
great
yeah.
mentality.
That's what I
Yeah,
found. And you know what? And
yeah,
it's so
everybody
true.
eat. That's
And it's
right.
true. It's true. There's so much space to work in nutrition. And, we could talk about now what I do for my
Yeah,
job
well, let
here
me
in a
ask
little
you that
bit.
question now.
Yeah,
'Cause you I don't wanna skip too far past a very important point, which is you have to meet people where they are, and you have to
absolutely.
help people with foods that are comfortable, because that's part of the community is that it feels safe, it feels comfortable, it feels familiar, and I've actually got to see some of your work in action and how you all are taking foods across cultures and transforming what we know as familiar into now more nutritious, more helpful, more sustaining for people. Can you talk about making people's normal a different normal, a new normal?
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, there's going to be the formal part of our training as dietitians. We have to do extensive research in psychology and motivational
Mm,
interviewing because at the end of the day, we're really counselors. We have to do a
mm,
lot of listening and we have to do a lot of assessing of what's going on. And so I would say that that's the formal part of it is learning techniques to help people talk about things, open it to question. But honestly, I feel I've had a lot of success for me is just being real with
yeah,
people, letting them know
yeah,
about my own struggles because they're already going to have a bias when I come in that this person's going to tell me I can't eat my favorite foods. They're going to judge me. And
that's right.
you just don't, as a healthcare practitioner, that's the last thing you want to do is lead with judgment. And I think because of the
Right,
experiences I've had and where I come from, coming from a multicultural background, coming from a background of eating very unhealthy and processed foods, there really is no judgment. I feel them. I 100% understand. And then when we bring in the social determinants of health, right? Maybe
mm,
transportation's an issue. Maybe going to the store on a regular basis is an issue. If you don't have a car and you have to ride multiple
yeah,
bus lines, how many groceries can you carry? Maybe that's why people are going to the corner store to get their food. There's so many aspects where it's just so important to listen and really assess what does this person need and how can we
mm,
make small changes because small changes add up time and they're sustainable. That was my biggest issue with frankly the field of dietetics, which I speak to a lot of dietetic students about this, about how we become such a professional, we become so educated on these things and we
mm,
love it, but the thing is
yeah,
nobody wants to sit and listen to us talk at them. They
right,
want real, tangible things that they can take with them for
yeah.
their life.
So one of the activities that I do in classes is called myths and shifts. So what's not true that we really think is true? And then if we could take a small step or two towards something different, what shift would we make? What
Mhm.
are a couple myths about nutrition that are really impacting people's lives and communities? And then what couple shifts could we make?
Oh my gosh, well, we could spend the whole podcast just talking about
On
this.
just the myths and the shifts? Yeah, right.
Just the and I love that you that's
Well,
a
let's
nice,
talk about it.
rhyme. Let's talk about it. So, I think a couple things is first of all that there are foods that you just can't eat. I don't practice that way, right? Because who am I to deny somebody a cultural food? For an example, diabetics will come to me, "I can't eat rice." And I go, "Why do you think that way?" Before I
Mm,
start my counseling of, "Yes, you can, it just depends on how much you eat and what you eat it with." What made you think that way? Because
yeah,
to shift away from a myth, we first have to see why that person feels that way. And that was the wellness industry telling them that a food is bad. Because there's no
yeah,
one definition of health. What's healthy for me is going to be different than for you, right? If somebody's gluten free, our health things are gonna be totally different.
yeah.
If someone's
Well, that's
diabetic
the
and
key
someone's not
point.
diabetic, yeah, yeah, healthy is there's no one definition of health, and so for me, who am
Mm,
I to tell a general populace they can't have a certain food? So there's room for
right.
all foods, it really just depends on the whole picture. What else are you eating? Is there exercise? Is there, what are the labs? X, Y, and Z. So I like to make food fit in every diet. It just
Yeah.
depends on how much, and that's what I do as the expert is help you figure out how can this food, if you really want to have it, how can it fit into your lifestyle to make you healthy and not healthy. And so to shift that, we just make small changes. Let's do the rice for a
Mm,
diabetic example, right? We
yep.
want diabetics to have a certain amount of carbs per meal. If you want to use all your carbs on the rice, that's fine. Have it. Just make
Mm,
sure you have some vegetables, some good fiber, and a protein source. And even the order you eat the food can determine your blood
mm.
sugar response as well. So
Wow.
here I am. And that is really what I have found in my years of doing this is the key to actually getting somebody to listen to you to make a change. I'm not saying
Mm.
no, I'm rewriting uh, what you think you can do for your diet, and we're meeting in the middle.
It's like healthy responsibility, right? That I get to, but because I get to, they used to say freedom equals responsibility. You really want freedom? Well, that comes with immediately is tied to a responsibility. It's like, yeah, you can, and I think that I grew up in an era of just say no to everything
Mm,
that was, it was just easier to tell kids and raise generations with just don't even look at it. Well, today you can't not look at it. Everything is in front of us all the time. And so that shift to a more healthy approach to even how I see my health and my nutrition, that's a game changer. And the industry's got to make that shift. It sounds like from this collective, here's the food pyramid chart to well, who are you and what do you need in the context of your life and experience? That's a big shift to make for any organization, but certainly when, as you say, everybody eats.
yeah. And there's only so much, you can do. For example, when I don't do as much one-on-one counseling anymore. And there's
Hmm.
pros and cons of that. I speak to groups. I do have to generalize something to a point, right? But that's why I'm
Yeah.
passionate about doing group classes based on a different type of disease. So most of the information is going to be really applicable, and then people can ask me one-on-one questions. But yeah, when you're deciding things like the people who decide the percent daily value of foods and how much saturated fat you can have, you're always going to lose people the more you widen your recommendation. So, but that's why dietitians are so important, specifically, in my
Mm,
opinion, in the community setting when people are out of the hospital, when they're in their everyday lives, to take that broad
yeah.
information and twist it and apply it to you. That's why we are so needed, more than a shake, more than some athletic greens, right? We can actually
Mm,
interpret broad information and make it culturally relevant and relevant to your life and your budget and all the other things.
yeah. What do you think companies need to know about nutrition and the impact on the workplace? Like, how does this topic show up at work, and what do companies need to hear?
Well, let's go back to that point of everybody eats. Food is
Yeah.
everything for people. That's why food addictions are so much tougher to counsel with than maybe a substance use. You can say no to a
Mm,
substance for the rest of your life. You can't not eat. And so company
mm,
wise, everyone is eating. What are one things company wants? More productive workers, less PTO, less sick days, less insurance usage. Let's get to the nutrition then, because the nutrition is probably the driving factor of all of those things, right? If people
yeah.
are feeling sluggish after lunch because they've eaten such a carb heavy meal, or they've eaten processed foods and they don't have natural energy, they're probably going to sit around and talk in the office in their chairs for about 2 hours. When you feel energized after eating a meal with good whole foods and whole grains
Mm,
and fruit and vegetables, you feel energy. You can get right back to it. Also, that's their own individual food patterns, right? But that's why when we think of benefits, I think having some sort of nutritional counseling or something to teach people about better
mm,
eating habits is a great way to actually invest and make more
yeah.
money in the future because your workers are healthier. But also about we use food as gatherings, parties, right? Luncheons, retreats.
Yeah. But
Try
none
to
of it's
think
ever
about the
healthy.
health. No, it's never.
It's
Do you
not
know
it's
how
not yeah.
many I you'd be surprised how many times I've been asked as a dietitian to come and do a speaking event for a private group or nonprofit, and they want to talk about nutrition, and I come in and they're serving bacon and donuts in the morning. And so
Oh, yeah.
now what I've done is I tell, I'm like, if there's going to be food there, like, let me help you menu plan, because people don't realize it, but that mixed messaging psychologically doesn't help the purpose of
Yeah.
what I'm trying to come in and do. And I know you, as somebody who does a lot of speaking events, you can understand that as well. So
Oh,
just
yeah,
really
man. I
investing.
know. I gotta work 3 times as hard if they had pasta for lunch, because they get that 1:30, 2 o'clock feeling, right? Everybody's dragging, right?
You
It's
call
like
it the
you're just
itis.
set up for failure, but nobody I mean, it kinda I even giggle about it because it's a human thing. However, it can't be good for business.
It's not. It's truly not. There are many studies that you can look up and cite, so I don't need to tell everybody about it, but healthier workers perform better. You have higher
Yeah.
productivity. I have come in and I used to do a lot of corporate wellness consulting. And, the places that invested in even like a small gym on site or a dietitian to come and have 30-minute sessions with people, we took data on those workers and they felt better. They felt
Mm,
better. They felt they could work harder. They felt they could perform more. Those people were willing to take that 30 minutes out of their day to meet with me. They were willing to add 30 more minutes on at the end of the day
wow.
because they were in because it and it will improve employee retention because you feel like your company actually cares about you.
That's right. Yeah, and most people are happy if there's just Twizzlers on site. What if they actually had a nutritionist and some healthy food that gave you energy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I got a couple other topics I wanna touch before I get you out of here. One is your heart for kids and community. You really love the kids, you love animals, you have a
Yes.
heart for community in different ways. And what what do we need to do differently in the messaging for young people about food? I mean, everything is handheld, like, it's expensive for parents with several children or even with one child today. And so, any advice for shifts for our children's sake?
This is a complicated topic because with children comes parents.
Correct.
With children come school teachers. With children come sports
Mm,
coaches. They're going to get a lot of mixed messaging, not even just
yeah,
about nutrition, about life at baseline. So
yeah,
when we think of our kids, I think all of us being on a similar page is one going to help them understand the right direction to go in. Um,
yeah.
when I used to work with kids, it's actually I tell people and other dietitians it's not that different than working with adults because their parents are the one who goes to the store. Their parents are the one who makes them the meals. Their parents are the ones,
Right.
right? So
Yeah. True
actually to
point.
target the kids, it starts with the parents. Your
Fair.
child is going to look to you as the parent for the right choice. So the messaging has got to match the actions. I can't tell you
And
how
what's the
many
message?
parents I
What's the
can't tell you how
message?
many the message is eat healthier whole foods for kids. The message is don't diet. This is the time in your life to eat more. We just want you to eat more healthy foods. We want you to be
Healthy
better
whole food.
hydrated, healthy whole foods, less energy drinks, less caffeine, less supplements. These children are already in a time where the instant gratification, so diet culture is
Mm,
going to hit them very hard. So when it comes to the parents, so many parents come to me and they say, well, why isn't my kid eating healthy at 10? What did you think about when you were 10? When you're 10, you don't think about getting diabetes
Doritos
and
Cool
chronic
Ranch.
disease. You're and so and many parents will come to me and say, "Why isn't my child eating healthy?" I'm telling them to eat healthy. I said, "What are they watching you eat? Why are you
Mm,
I want you to have a mindset shift. Why are you allowed to sit on the couch and eat Cool Ranch Doritos, but they can't? That's not going to make sense to them. We as the parents
mm,
have to model the behavior in our actions and in our words for the kids to follow along. It's the same
yeah,
reason that I didn't eat that healthy growing up. I was doing what my mom was doing. I was eating in the environment she set for me. When I opened the pantry
sure.
and I saw hot Cheetos and Lil Debbie, what else? Why would I grab celery? You're
Particularly if
not
they're
thinking
oatmeal cream
about health.
pies. That's right.
I love those.
Oatmeal cream
So,
pies all the same.
they were so
Anyways,
good.
continue on.
No, but just, I think that's what it is we all have to be on the same page with the messaging, and you cannot
Mm,
expect a child to care about their health because they don't fully understand the ramifications of what having bad health can do to them. So you as the
mhm.
parents need to model the behavior for them to follow suit.
Final thing is about the real implications of cost. Eating whole, healthy foods is a hard thing to afford today for a lot of families, even for companies to set that up. It's just the cost of everything has gone up as it relates to food, particularly healthy food that's actually good for us. What are some cheat codes that you encourage in the community for companies, families, community members? There are shortcuts. People can figure it out. and you're doing some of that good work in communities and figuring out those strategies. What are some shortcuts to still getting it done, even though it's expensive?
Great question. And time and money are seen in so many ways. And
Mm,
even if I tell people, even if you, when it comes to the money part about the whole foods, the less processed the food is, the more you have to cook. That's time, right? Thinking
mm,
about things like that. So, some really quick tips that I say, and I live by these. First of all, frozen foods, frozen fruits and vegetables have the same nutritive value that fresh ones do, and they will last you longer. I'm a
mm.
house of one. I'm a party of one. I can't buy 3 bell peppers and expect to eat them before they go bad. So I can either chop them
That's
up and
true.
freeze them, or I can just start with the frozen ones. They have the same nutritive value. Canned, for example, like canned beans. You want people to eat more beans in their diet. Those are great for you. If you have a heart disease, a high blood pressure, rinsing and drain them can cut the amount of sodium in there in half. Okay. So sticking to the perimeter of the grocery store. Yes, things
Mm,
are very expensive right now at baseline, but if you stick to just whole and mostly plant-based food items, you'll have that extra money for your meat, your dairy, and your eggs. It's when we want to do the whole foods plus the meat and the dairy and the eggs plus the chips and the granola bars and that because the processed and packaged food is always going to be more expensive than if you just bought the ingredients. So it is a little bit of a trade-off. But I have sat with
mm,
people and I show one receipt and then I show the other. So if you can try to get away from filling up your pantry with shelf stable foods like that and focus more on filling your fridge and your freezer with things, you will save money and you can still eat a general diet. People don't realize,
mm.
start looking at your receipts and minus how much you spend on pop and cookies and candy and see how much money you could save. You could take that money and buy a better quality meat, buy a better
Yeah.
quality olive oil, right? And so
Mm,
again, and if things are taking long to cook, those frozen foods that are already prepped and chopped, they have like fajita style bell peppers that you can buy frozen. You can marinate some chicken breast in a Ziploc bag the morning of, olive oil, Miss Dash seasoning, whatever you want to put in it, garlic. Heat that up when you get home, or even throw it in the crock pot. It
yeah.
can be simple. We just have to really take a little bit of a deeper look into what you're spending your money on and see how we can switch it around. $100 can go a long
Yeah.
way. It just depends on how we work with it.
That sounds like something most people would have to be coached on, and I'm guessing you can help them. Why don't you tell us before we get out of here about Easy Peasy Nutrition and how you can serve people if they want to get in touch with you too, how to do that?
Thank you. Yes, so that is my company, Easy Peasy Nutrition LLC. That's what it's supposed to be, easy peasy. I like to make things real, simple, budget friendly. I don't want to make it too complicated. Um,
Yep.
and so
Don't be stuck.
you can find me on socials on Instagram and Facebook and under Easy Peasy Nutrition LLC. Send me an email. My email is linked to those two. You can find me on LinkedIn, Camille Adams, RDN. Reach out to me, send me a message. I would love to get in contact with people. You can go through
Mhm.
CamilleAdams-nutrition.com. Would love to set up a time with you if you're looking for some consulting or again, I'm not going to make it too fancy because healthy eating and nutrition doesn't need to be fancy. It's simple, it's quick, and you can get a lot in with just a quick 30-minute meal or something that's already prepped beforehand. So
I love it. I love it. Your story and how you were shown this pathway and then to just follow your passion with the work you're doing in communities is just a cool story of somebody who was stuck, got unstuck, and now you're helping others do exactly the same about something that's really core to life and death. And so I salute you. I applaud you and hand you all those flowers for the work you're doing. Thanks for coming to Unstuck, Camille, and we'll talk to you again soon.
thanks for having me. Thank you so much.